Hey everybody, welcome to Monday. I'm gonna say in advance, I'm having trouble with my throat again. So I'm gonna stop and take a drink of the bubbly every so often. Forgive me. It's kind of rude, I know. It's awkward pauses, but I have to do it because otherwise my throat is gonna be really super sore and it's never gonna get better. I think I'm just worn out. I'm burning the candle at both ends. I'm working on a ton of super fun stuff, but I am very busy. And I don't have time or opportunity to just sort of recuperate. I'm working 7 days a week, 10 to 12-hour days all the time again. I know it's not good for me. I can't do anything about it. I need the money. Terrible segue, but if you like this sort of content, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LandonK. Maybe someday I'll be able to work a little less hard. Today is not that day. I think we're all tired. Or I will say we are all worn out. We're worn out from pandemic fatigue. We're worn out from US politics. I don't think Americans realize how much US politics consumes the world. I don't know about you guys in Europe, but I turn on Canadian news trying to find something about Canada, see what's going on in our news. And TV news is Trump, or it's Biden, or it's the Supreme Court confirmation. Our national news in Canada is being pushed off our national news by the mess that the US is right now. And, obviously I'm an outsider to it. We can consume the facts, but we can't understand what it's like to live in that. And I've been trying to understand it. I've been doing a little bit of, I won't call it scientific because obviously it's not. It's anecdotal. What it really is it's gonzo reporting. I'm putting myself in a situation and trying to sort of see what happens and then figured out why it's happening. And that has led me back to this idea of keep politics out of gaming, right? And it's been really interesting, the journey I've taken on this subject, because when I first started hearing it back in like 2014, 2015, I was one of those, what do you mean? Politics is in everything. You're not, you don't see it because you benefit from the dominant political framing in video games. I don't know if the discussion has changed or my viewpoint has changed, but I'm at the point where I would really like to read a piece on video games that has nothing to do with Republicans and Democrats or left versus right. Like, there's talking about an issue, and then there's partisan talking points generator. And I think I know it's that partisan talking points generator that I can't stand. No matter how much I wholeheartedly agree with someone's particular position on something, these days, if they sound like a talking points generator, if it's just, I know what they're going to say before they say it because it's just so by the numbers, I turn it off. I check out. I don't care because it's not teaching me anything, right? And the problem with getting your view on the world from the internet is the internet is intensely partisan compared to even if you turn on TV news. Especially like, one of the mainstream evening news, like NBC, ABC, CBS, not MSNBC, not the 24-hour one, the evening news. It's totally different. The way the stories are ranked and the way stories are presented is totally different from how they're presented on the website for that entity. Even if you watch Fox News during the day or Fox News at night, it's very different. And websites are even more partisan. Now, of course, we're stuck reading websites for gaming news, right? The magazines that used to exist don't exist anymore. The mainstream services like, your local newspaper doesn't have a regular gaming section. It every once in a while will run a gaming story as either tech or arts or something outside of Forbes. And I think, Forbes is really the only mainstream service I can think of right now that runs gaming content all the time. Post Arcade from the National Post is I guess another one, except that's, to say it's poorly funded would be putting it lightly. So take from that what you will. I should, at least they're trying on the one hand. On the other hand, pay your freaking people. This is something people actually want to read, just the same as, movies or television shows or all that stuff. So we're stuck getting highly partisan internet news for information on games. We have discovered we can't trust highly partisan internet news. And we know we're not going to necessarily trust the marketing company from, the marketing department of the company that's under the microscope, without some pretty serious sanity checks on that one. So we're stuck, right? We either stick our heads in the sand and don't consume any news, or we need to get dragged into this political fight that we're exhausted by and we're told to get away from. And how can we get away from it on doctor's orders if it's coming to the communities that we use to get away from that kind of thing? You get what I'm saying? And I really do think that there's a big difference between dealing with a character who has a particular personality trait, right? If you're gonna, make a black lesbian character, for instance, and you want to give them a love story, obviously that's going to be relevant, right? I don't think it's fair to just totally dismiss a game if they don't want to do that. Just saying that. I think that to me is the divide. That's my line, right? About politics and gaming. And I recognize that the line is going to be different for everybody. This is just my line. And I just crystallized this over the weekend, which is why I'm making this video now. When I was putting away laundry, it crystallized for me, right? I don't care if Doom has representation, right? Because there's only one human in the whole freaking thing anyway. I just don't care. And I shouldn't be forced to care. And it's not relevant to that particular property that there isn't some sort of identity politics inclusion in a game where you're killing demons with their own eyeballs, right? Literally, you can kill demons with their own eyeballs. I like to. That being said, am I going to look at a game like, say, what is the name of that game where you play as Ophelia from Hamlet, but she's a black lady, and it's based on one line, like a dark countenance or something like that from Hamlet. Oh, what the crap's it called? Give me a second while I look this up, because I don't remember the name of it. It's in my library. God, this is the worst possible way to find it. Crap. This is the way the brain is working right now, right? I can't find it. Someone will remind me in the comics. But it's made by, it's funny. I remember it's Golden Glitch Games. I don't remember the name of the freaking game. It's like one of those one-word titles that don't really mean very much except in context. But anyway, okay, it's kind of interesting what they did. Does it kind of kick me out of it at times? Yeah, but it's a retelling. I'm kind of cool with it. So, if the game is going there, I will go with it. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, not great. If it doesn't go there, it doesn't have to go there. That's the difference between theme and character to me and politics. No game can be for everyone. So punishing a game for not being for everyone is not fair. There's a big enough market that, okay, there are some games like the Doom franchise that predate all of this stuff by decades. It shouldn't have to change because there are now others that like other kinds of games. I did Rich over at Review Tech USA's stream the other night. It was a ton of fun, but we were talking about, the Tomb Raider franchise and how he really likes it. I'm more attached to the old Tomb Raider games. So, perfectly decent games, but the new games and the first 3 Crystal Dynamics games and the core games, they're not even the same type of game. One's like an open world action shooter. The other's more of a puzzler with some minor combat elements, right? There's a lot more puzzle exploration in it. Not even the same thing. So we were able to go, okay, it's just different. I could argue in terms of characterization, I probably would like the new Tomb Raider games a lot more if they weren't Tomb Raider. If they just made, an open world type of game with a younger female playable character, I would not be constantly glancing off the game because that's not the Lara Croft I know, right? I'd still hate the damn Trinity storyline, but I think I'd hate Trinity as, an ultimate big bad a lot less if I weren't comparing it to Jacqueline Natla, who's still the best Tomb Raider villain ever, right? And this is the issue with us living in an age where everything's bloody recycled, right? And that's where we get into you're remaking, I heard they're like remaking Good Times. Now it's like, okay, I'm interested to see how that's gonna work, right? And so it's the sort of thing where you have to take a property so that there's name recognition, but it's not the property at all because you've changed something, right? Like, could you imagine if it's, we're going to make the Golden Girls, but it's going to be 4 young women instead. It's like, well, then that's Sex in the City, not the Golden Girls, right? That seems absurd, but they think they can just change fundamental elements of certain shows and it's still the same show. And people go, BS, right? This is the issue with changing things instead of creating new IP. Now, I feel for people who are doing these reimaginings precisely because it is just so much easier to get something approved if there is a pre-existing perceived player base for it. Now, obviously, we all know this is nonsense. Just because somebody liked the old games, if you give them new games that are nothing like the old games, they're not necessarily going to play it. They're going to be repelled by it. But no joke, this is how decisions are getting made up on the money levels, right? So I think we have to be kind to the people stuck doing these things and, things like a Harry Potter game that was started long before J.K. Rowling lost her shit and started, fighting fights that impact people other than her. And there's another issue, right? Like a big AAA person, it's one thing to state your opinions on things, right? People should be able to state their opinions on anything. People can agree. People can disagree. People shouldn't label someone a bad person because of one opinion or a handful of opinions that people take issue with. Human beings are complex. That's not the way it works, right? But that's exactly what happens. And that's because the structure of partisan politics has invaded video games, because these various companies are staffed by people who are not just left-wing, they are far left-wing. And that has created a whole other cottage industry of, right-wing sites trying to scoop up the disaffected and alienated, WSCMs, white, straight, cisgendered men, basically because it's just easy. Like they don't have to create that alienation. They just have to exploit it. And that alienation is super real. And that's the thing that I really struggle with all the time. I really struggle with in my content. Because obviously I'm not a guy. But I want to create content that indicates while I'm going to advocate for more inclusion of women, because I think that's good for everybody. I mean, you will not hear a white straight guy, any straight guy, you will not hear them complain about more women somewhere, especially if they're single, right? That's a generalization, but you know what I mean. I hear plenty of straight guys going, no, we want more women in games. We just don't want everything so angry. And not that women are angry, that's stereotype. Just, we want it to be, hey, you like games, I like games, let's talk about games. Now, there are certain manners of speaking that need to be discussed. The problem is that we cannot discuss anything in that way right now in a way that's effective, because the core demographic for AAA video games is too alienated right now. I don't give a crap that that's not politically correct to say. I don't give a crap. Oh, you sound like a right winger. I don't care. Sometimes the other side is right. The political left has alienated people who otherwise would give people a hearing on certain issues. And I believe it's because the core of it, obviously there are other things, but the core of it is I consider myself left-wing. I do not consider myself a left-wing political activist. And left-wing political activists have left out disability inclusion in their definition of intersectionality. And the problem with that is that means they've been preaching check your privilege to a bunch of people who, if you actually look at certain spheres of life, are less privileged than they are. Any able-bodied person, any able-minded person, quite frankly, is more privileged in terms of work environment than another person of the same socioeconomic bracket who has a mental or physical disability. This is just known, right? There are a greater number of jobs open to you simply because you can apply for any job that requires 10 fingers, 10 toes, all of them work, right? I say this as somebody whose hands don't work really well. So any job that requires lifting or carrying, well, I can't do that because, I may drop a customer's purchase, for instance, carrying it to their car. I may drop stock. My hands just fail all of a sudden. They don't know why. They're still trying to figure it out. And this blind spot has really crippled discussion. One of the things that I ended up learning through gaming is, especially in the US, how many war veterans, how many military veterans, I should just say war veterans, members of the military, have trouble finding work because people just, oh, you were in this war? Well, all of you have PTSD. You're going to go crazy one day. I'm not going to hire you. And as long as they don't say that that's the reason, if they don't give a reason, they just hire somebody else. You can't prove that. And it's dicey whether you can, make a claim, get the money, get the lawyer, go sue, maybe lose. It's not as easy to protect your rights in that regard in the US as it is in Canada, where we have human rights tribunals, right? And so this is what I don't understand about this attempting to compel people or coerce people to adopt a certain type of politics. It doesn't work. If you care very much, and I'm saying this as somebody who made these mistakes when I was younger and discovered, hey, this doesn't work. It just makes people mad at you. If you create an environment where a particular person, hello Scout, a particular person doesn't feel accepted, you are increasing the likelihood that they will end up joining precisely the groups you think are bad. I saw this, it's interesting, I saw this in the community I grew up in, which wasn't predominantly white. I saw kids shoplift, and when I'm like, why'd you do that? They said, well, they think I'm a criminal anyway. Why not? I've already been punished for this. Why not get something out of it? Right? People are people. So, that's what's happening right now in an environment that should be an escape from what's going on in the very charged rest of the world, right? Because partisan rancor is invading the gaming space. And the problem is there are certain structural problems that mean this is a really hard cycle to break out of. And I'm going to spend the rest of this video talking about that. It may spill over in tomorrow. Because, basic stuff that we all agree is better, like attacking ideas instead of people, you're punished for doing that by search engine optimization and various social media algorithms, right? If you want to talk about, I don't know, pick a topic, right? The structure of the Supreme Court, just for something, and you do, structural issues in jurisprudence, nobody's going to search those terms. You search Donald Trump or Amy Coney Barrett or Brett Kavanaugh or Joe Biden or something like that. You put that in your video, a lot more people are going to find it through search or recommendations. Services like YouTube and Twitter and Facebook actually encourage attacking people instead of ideas through the way their systems work. So, in order to do the thing that would actually create more productive dialogue, you make videos a lot fewer people see. You should say, all right, fine. So do the things you need to do so that people will see it. That doesn't work either if your end goal is creating dialogue, because people won't listen. This is what I discovered through my experiments in Twitter. And again, I was not deliberately trolling. I was saying things that I legitimately believed. It was just sort of, well, people might go nuts. Let's test this. Let's see if they can actually respond to the point being made, not the, you referenced this person in a way I consider negative, getter, right? Guess what happened? Every single time, people didn't deal with the point I was making. It was, you're a hypocrite based on identity. You know, you this, you that. And we get into a fight about what bloody terms and words mean. And this is just personal for me, and maybe there needs to be a video about this. In fact, I am going to make a video specifically about words mean different things to different people. Fucking chill, okay? Because that needs its own time. But you know what I mean, right? We spend way too much time fighting over the meaning of words. Now, I get that there's a good reason for this, because people have this fear that if you don't get the right word, you're going to be excommunicated. And I get that fear, but you can't have discussions on this stuff in this environment. It's just impossible. It's guaranteed to trigger people, and that's not making fun. Like, I watch people get triggered. I watch people who I have spoken to before become completely irrational because something pushed their buttons somehow. And this is the other thing I'm going to deal with this week, because people didn't seem super jazzed on the AOC thing, and I think it's been too long anyway, is that this is what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. You can't sell the idea that it's okay to enjoy media with problematic elements when you don't seem to enjoy anything. And I'm going to explore that in the next video, because I think this, needs to be talked about. Okay? Okay. If you like this sort of video, I know this was sort of deep and just kind of scratched the surface, but these are deep subjects, right? Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching.